In this video, I'm going to cover the gear and execution checklist for an in-person podcast we're doing. So if that's going to be useful to you, stay right here. Hey everyone, I am Rich Cardona. I'm a podcast producer of some of the world's biggest podcasts, and I'm starting a new one locally here in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I wanted to give you some information on how I'm approaching it. Now, if you haven't looked at any of our previous videos, like how we came up with the concept, things that you should know about whether or not you want to start a podcast, we've kind of included all that stuff already. We also included how to reach out to guests. I walk you through that. So now we're at the point where I have these podcasts scheduled. We're having a little bit of shifting with some of the schedules, which is very normal. So I'm like, let me just get this gear and execution checklist for myself, the team, and the videographer specifically. This is going to help you go in with a plan, because if you don't plan to fail. Okay. So many different things can go wrong, whether it's the hosting, whether it's the tech, whether it's the time, any of that stuff. So we're going to get right into it, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Here we are, gear and execution checklist. Now this is Notion. We use Notion for a lot of things. I mean, I think we use it for everything now: project management, tasks, notes, of course, and all that other stuff. That we could give you a totally different time, but we have SOPs for a lot of things. We have process documents folder, and here we go. So the prerequisite, there's none. Purpose, ensure all the gear is needed and ready in advance. This will alleviate misses or a lack of essentials. You don't want to show up to a podcast or a video that you're going to shoot without the essentials. And it addresses who's going to need it, etc. Okay, so I have a couple administrative items because the videographer is a new join, so that's kind of not necessarily applicable. Admin. Okay, this is pre-work. The goal for the pre-work is to just make sure you have where you're going to upload it, that it's already got a dedicated folder, and that there's a folder for each different camera if you are going to be using multiple cameras. So in this case, what I want is I want the administrative stuff done in advance. I want Google Drive folders already set up, okay? I want placeholders for the audio and video editors and our respective trackers. We have trackers where we assign things so the editors can anticipate them. You might not be at that point yet. You might not be at the point for a lot of these things yet, but that's completely fine and okay. This is just letting you know how to think in advance. This might save you a ton of trouble in the future. I want USB reader for SD cards. Okay, that's my responsibility to bring that. SSD, essentially an external hard drive for the podcast that I need to bring. I want standard questions. Now, really quick on this, I never ever would normally have standard questions, especially for some of my podcasts with, entrepreneurs or bigger names or anything like that. But in this case, like I said in a previous video, some of these people actually might be nervous to be on camera. They are grinding, they are hustling, they are trying to get this business going or sustain it or just elevate it. And that does not mean they're going to be good on camera. So the reason I have some standard questions like, how did you get the business name? Something along those lines, or like, what's the number one product that people buy from you? Or what's the number one sandwich here? Those types of things. If they know some of that in advance, it's going to make it a little bit easier. It's also going to make it a better listening experience and video experience for the audience. Okay. So we're simplifying that. Otherwise, I go in kind of cold with a couple ideas of what I want to talk with and just pull on the strings as they give them to me during the interview. Now, back to the folder here. A notebook, that's for the videographer, so he could take notes if anything's mentioned that we need to pay attention to later, and then a laptop to do the transfer afterwards. Now, audio, here's all the things I need. Again, you might not have any of this stuff, but it's just for your situational awareness, or SA as I like to say it. Need a power strip. I'm going to need an extension cord because a lot of the things we want to use, I don't want to rely on batteries for the cameras. I want to rely on AC power. Okay, if I rely on AC power, then I'm not going to have any recording issues or the camera timing out or anything like that. The Zoom H6 is what we're going to use. I also want a power adapter for that. The Zoom H6 is where I'm going to plug in the microphones, batteries for that as a backup, and then we have 3 to 4 mics. Now, does uniformity matter? I actually only have 3 Shure SM7Bs, so I'm going to have to use something else in the meantime, but I'm going to have to order one. I do believe uniformity matters. Everyone should use the same mic. I need the stands for the mics, I need XLR cables for the mics, and I need headphones with a cable, so that way the person or the videographer can check the sound levels. Okay, so that's what we need in advance for audio. Audio alternates. In case something's wrong with the mics or XLR cables or anything like that, we will have 2 Sennheiser mics charged, meaning those are lavalier mics that clip onto me or the guest, and they sound just as good as a podcast mic. So if we need an alternate, then we have those available. Video. Now I'm trying to think just from the ground up. It's like, okay, we need tripods, right? What's going on top of the tripod is a camera, and I'm going to have an AC power adapter for that. This is a cam. Okay, there's 3 cameras. So I want an A cam, which is camera one, essentially, a second camera, a B cam, and then a C cam, which is going to be the wide shot. I want battery backups for all those. I want AC power adapters for all those, specific type of lenses for each of them, and then a clean SD card. V90, someone just schooled me up on that recently. I'm so oblivious to some of this stuff sometimes, but that's just a very much a faster transfer rate, those types of SD cards, but they are definitely more expensive. So just keep that in mind. So that covers kind of the cameras. Okay. So I have the 3 different cameras I'm using, the lenses I want on each of them, and I want to make sure that there's a clean SD card, meaning there's nothing on the SD card. So there's no chance that you're going to hit a storage limit in the middle of recording, which has happened to me before. That's why I have it on here. All right. Video alternates. I'm going to use an iPhone for a wide shot if I need to, and I'll bring a phone holder, something like this if I need to, and no big deal. LED lights. I prefer natural light. If we need to bring LED lights, we need to. And I want to bring them in the case for professionalism, because there's been a couple times I've brought some lights and it just looked janky as hell if I'm walking in, with them bare bones. I have a nice little box package for them. Why not use that? All right. Pre-work is done, and we have video covered, we have the audio covered, and we have the software or any administrative items covered. Now we're going to move on to the actual execution. So that's the gear, and it's going to be like that going forward. The videographer or your help or you are going to check those boxes. If you don't check those boxes, you will miss something, I guarantee you. So let's get back. All right, execution. I have this in prior to recording, and then post-recording, or you could look at it as pre-production, production, post-production. I don't care. Doesn't matter. Name it whatever you want. If we need to use these batteries or those microphones, we need to know that they're charged. Okay. We can't just have them there. We need to know that they're charged, especially if you have not used them in like 4 weeks or something like that. Like, you can't just go in cold thinking it's going to be available. So just know that SD cards need to be clean. All right. Confirm the arrival time. We're going to confirm the arrival time and the setup time. Okay. So like, how much time are they going to give us to set up prior to recording? We can't just imagine, like, what if the store opens at a certain time and they're doing the interview before the store opens? Like, we can't just imagine we have all this time to set up. Like, they have certain things that they're going to want to do. So I want to know what time we're arriving and setting up and how much time we have to set up. Most importantly, we're going to time this. And the reason we are timing this is so we have a benchmark. The first time should be the worst time. So let's just say, when we do our first one, either tomorrow or the next day, that it's going to be, it took us 30 minutes to set up. I'm like, bet 30 minutes. Like, what are we going to do to get it down to 25? What are we going to do to get to 20? And we should be able to see that kind of speed up in advance because we have a good system and we have a checklist. Now, I also need to confirm the recording time that we're starting. The recording time is critical because we need to know when we can go to. So if they say 9 a.m. because we have a meeting at 9:45, then I'm going to say to myself, okay, we realistically have a half-hour interview. If we start anytime after 9, we're going to be kind of getting close to their next meeting or responsibility, and you don't want to do that. You want them to be calm, collected, and ready for the interview and focused on that. Okay. Hosts, we are going to consider asking interviewees in advance which dishes they would like to avoid, if applicable. This is just for restaurants. So if I'm going to ask them, what's the crowd favorite, what's your newest product, or what's your newest dessert or anything like that, like, I want to know that in advance instead of asking them on the spot. Because how many times have you been to a restaurant where you ask a waiter or waitress, like, what do you like on the menu? And they're like, oh, I like everything. This alleviates them having that moment in the middle of a podcast. They already kind of know, oh, this grilled cheese is our best grilled cheese, or our lasagna is clearly our top seller. Our newest thing is a pumpkin spice latte. You guys should check it out. So keep that in mind. That's why we're doing it in advance. Next, identify the space and area for recording. This is like, we just got to see, are we sitting at a table? Are we sitting at a high top? And how far is it going to be from an outlet? Because we need that extension cord and power strip to make it to where we're doing it. So that way we can rely on that power. So set up the power strip and extension cord. Then essentially we're going to set up the cameras. I want to do the video first because that takes the longest. Then the audio. The audio doesn't take nearly as long. Then we're going to notify the team. We're going to notify the team that's not there that this is coming, that we just expect this to happen, and to be prepared for us to be uploading things in an hour or so. And then we're going to establish a date for follow-up for B-roll shots. Now, B-roll is essentially, let's just say I'm interviewing the person and he's talking about, we are located at the corner of 17th and Market. You can't miss us. We have this big orange sign. Obviously, in the middle of the interview, I can't run out and get that, but we should have a shot list that we could get afterwards. So the videographer or the person also monitoring to audio is going to make a note of something like that. So that way, at another time or after the interview, we could get all these shots that we need. If they mention drinks, if they mention food, if they mention the back room, or if they, whatever it is, like we want to get those later, we can't do it now. That again would normally not be the case, but it just makes more sense. I do not want to take up these business owners' time. So they're also probably going to be interviewed when there's no clients or customers. It's up to them. But if that is the case and they want to do the interview alone and get the B-roll later when there's people in there and it's buzzing, then obviously that makes more sense because it's more appealing to the user. Okay, during recording, we're going to begin a timer. If we get close to the end, our allotted time, I'm going to have the videographer put up like a 5-minute signal. Obviously, they need to make sure all cameras are recording, that the sound is good to go, and take any notes. I just talked about that. Candid pics is what this should say. So candid pictures, if they could take pictures in the middle of it, they should. And that way we have some pictures. Post-recording, I want pictures with the guest and I want to debrief with the guest. What went well, what didn't, anything else, and when can we get the B-roll that we need for the video. We're going to pack up all our gear and we have to be timely because this is a business. And then we're going to debrief internally. And Joe and I, the videographer and I, are going to look at technical things that went right or wrong from a hosting perspective, what went right or wrong. And is there anything we didn't prepare for that needs to go on this checklist next time around? Then it's just going to essentially be the uploading process and then backing up all the video and audio files, getting them to Google Drive, and essentially cleaning the SD card so that they're ready to go for the next time we have a podcast, and then charging anything that was used that did not have AC power. So that felt probably kind of fast for you, which I apologize if it was, but this is it. Okay. This is what you need. If you have this in advance and you go over this the night before, or your help goes over this the night before, then you will be set up for success. And when you show up, you will look more professional. I do not plan on going into these people's restaurants or service or businesses and looking like we just kind of threw this together. If we have a systematic process, I believe that's going to leave a much better impression. It's going to make them feel more comfortable, and it's going to clearly demonstrate that we know what the hell we're doing. And that's what I want for you. So if you want this checklist, which might get updated, go ahead and leave us a comment and email us at info@richcardonamedia.com and we will get it to you. This is going to be hugely helpful for you. I hope this was of value. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please subscribe and ring the bell so that way you get notified. I want to keep you up to date on how to start your podcast and all the different angles we can use to approach it in a way that's going to make it easy for you and not this scary, ridiculous endeavor. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.